So Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States. Now, whether you love that or want to crawl in the fetal position, that's not what this video is about. This is not a political video. This video is about what does it mean for you as an Amazon seller that Trump is going to be the next president. We're going to get into the elephant of the room, which is tariffs and all the implications, all the things that that means. We're going to get into taxes, and I'm even going to talk about my predictions about TikTok Shop. So if you plan on selling on Amazon from 2025 to 2029, buckle in and let's get into this. What is up, guys? Welcome to Heist, the YouTube channel that's dedicated to all things selling on Amazon. And when you sell on Amazon, you're likely making physical products. And if you're making physical products, there's a pretty good chance you're making them outside of the United States. And that matters a lot right now with the news that Donald Trump is going to be the next president. Again, I'm not going to get into my political beliefs. I don't think that you care. I don't think it really matters for the context of this conversation. This is really just what does that mean that he's going to be the next president if you're selling on Amazon and you're building a business on Amazon. So if you didn't follow the campaign at all, a key cornerstone to the policies that Trump talked about was the fact that he was going to use tariffs strategically to build and grow the United States and manufacturing in the United States. Now, while we don't know exactly what these tariff amounts are going to be, we don't know exactly when they're going to take effect or if they're going to take effect at all, there was a ton of breadcrumbs throughout the campaign that give us insights into what we can expect and what you should do about it. So the first thing is that there's likely going to be tariffs for any product that is imported from outside of the United States. Trump has alluded to the fact that this is going to be 25% plus for those products coming from Mexico. It's going to be 20% for any non-China import. So even for using Vietnam, Thailand, India, etc., 20%. And if the product's manufactured in China, it's possible that you could see a 60% plus tariff on those goods imported into the US, which is a big thing because if you're selling on Amazon, there's a high likelihood that at least one of your products is actually made in China. Now, we don't know exactly, again, what tariff amounts or when they're going to be levied, but I think it's highly likely, and my prediction would be, especially for those products from China, is that we're going to see this by the end of Q1 2025. But even if it's longer than that, the first thing I want to talk about is what you can do before those tariffs take effect. So again, whether they take effect in February, March, or some point in the future, what can you do right now given the fact that tariffs are likely going to come down? First of all, know that if you manufacture in China, there's always a heavy amount of shipping that takes place before Chinese New Year, which next year is going to be January 29th, 2025. So shipping rates are going to go up. And especially if you manufacture a more expensive product where that 60% plus tariff could have a real big impact, you're going to want to import product before those tariffs take place. But a key point here, you've got to actually import the goods into the United States. So let's say that you've got a 30-day lead time on your manufacturing, assume say 45 days for it to actually get in through customs. You're looking at 75 days, even if you make the decision right now before you can get those products in. So if you've got more expensive products, if you're worried about those 60% plus tariffs happening sooner rather than later, you need to be shipping your goods in now. And you also need to expect that there's going to be congestion. You're not going to be the only one doing this because of CNY, as well as because of this new tariff risk. So if you make products in China and they're strategic to you, you want to get them in as soon as possible and be making a plan literally this week to do so. Now let's look forward a little bit here and say that there's a longer term view. Let's say that we're talking about the tariffs actually being implemented. So beyond say Q1 2025, what do, right? You've got a product that used to be 5% tariff, maybe 25% tariff, and now it's 60% plus. What can you do? Well, the first thing to understand is there's actually something called an exclusion process with the US government, whereby basically some products apply to get excluded from a tariff. And that usually means that it's used strategically in the US, it helps people, it's used for nonprofits. There's a whole host of reasons, but you can actually apply it through the exclusion process and say, hey, here's the reasons why I do not think that you should apply this punitive tariff to my product. Now, this is a complicated process. I've done it in the past using a company called Tradewin. So if that's something that you really wanted to pursue, take a look at that. But what most sellers and most importers don't know is that, let's say that I apply for an exclusion for my barbecue as an example, and my barbecue is used to help nonprofits and it's used for kids, or it's used for some other strategic thing in the US, and the US government says, okay, Adam, your barbecue does not get a 60% tariff because we've given you and granted you an exclusion. Now, even though I might have spent $5,000 plus to actually process that legally and get it, anybody with my product type can also ride the coattails of that exclusion process and get the tariff negated. So you should absolutely be doing research on exclusions for your product category and see if one of your competitors or somebody else in your industry has gotten exclusion. Then you can actually use that exclusion to potentially have that tariff removed for your product as well. It's a long shot, but a lot of people don't know about the exclusion process, so wanted to bring it up. Again, pretty complicated legal territory, so a company called Tradewin is who I've used, not affiliated with them. But if you want to navigate that process, that's one way to do it. The second thing, which is going to be more likely, is that if Trump does not do a blanket tariff across all goods coming from China initially, like he may pick some specific products or some specific industries, and other ones may be left alone. So let's say that you got a product that he targeted and it was 60%, but there's some other stuff that's relevant to your product that you may be able to classify it as, that's say 5% or 25%. You can actually change your HTS code if you believe that your product is identified by that lower tariff HTS code and import it underneath that. Again, there is some risk with this. If you change an HTS code from previous imports, it's highly likely to get flagged at customs. So you can actually ask the government using a process called a binding ruling and say, hey, I've got XYZ barbecue. Here are the features. We believe it should be classified under this HTS code, which say has a 5% tariff. Do you agree? They will let you know yes or no. We agree with you. You can then use that binding ruling to import your product under a lower tariff code. This is a little bit of a whack-a-mole game because it can be very short term. As an example, I had a product as an example that was a 10% tariff. We found an HTS code that was 3%. We got a binding ruling. It was awesome. We saved 7% in tariff. But then later on, the Trump tariff hit that one that was 3% and went up to 25%. So this could be a changing game, but in a short-term perspective, if you've got a HTS code that is a lower tariff amount that isn't hit by a potential new tariff, you may be able to get a binding ruling to use that lower tariff HTS code. Now, the other option is obviously to look outside of China. Again, he's alluded to the fact that there is going to be a 20% tariff on even non-China countries, 25% for Mexico. But at 60%, it may still be an impact if you go to Thailand or Vietnam or India. So you can actually look at sourcing outside of China to get a lower tariff. And then you can obviously also look at the US, which is obviously going to have a 0% tariff. The US has traditionally been really good for supplements, for beauty products, certain larger items. But on a longer term perspective, if you want to get under the weight of these potentially punitive tariffs, you can look at manufacturing in the US. So enough about tariffs, let's talk about tax implications. The other thing that was alluded to on the campaign trail is that for any US-based company that manufactures all of their products in the US, the corporate tax rate would go from somewhere in the low 20% range down to 15%. So if you sell supplements or you have 100% of your products that are currently or will be manufactured in the US, you can expect to save about 5% on your corporate taxes. We don't know what that's going to look like yet. We don't know how you actually apply and qualify. But if you're able to transition all of your manufacturing to the US, you can expect to save 5% on your income tax. Now, the final one that may not impact all Amazon sellers today is the fact that TikTok Shop has been a big thing. You might have heard about it. A lot of people are going from Amazon, which has become more difficult, to TikTok Shop, which is kind of the wild west of selling on e-commerce. But Congress has stated that they're going to shut TikTok down. Now, if a Democrat was elected, I think that there's a lot more risk of that actually happening. But I think the fact that Trump was elected, it's unknown, but I think it's unlikely that TikTok is going to get shut down. He's alluded to the fact on the campaign trail that he would not shut TikTok down. But even if they decide to do a forced sale of TikTok and or shut it down, there's a lot of talk of Microsoft and Bill Gates potentially buying it, of Jeff Bezos and Amazon buying it, of Meta and Facebook buying it. I think if there still is a forced sale, I think it's unlikely to go to Jeff Bezos. So I don't think that TikTok Shop is going to survive underneath the Amazon platform just because of the political disagreements that Trump has had with Bezos. Now, this is a total wild card, but I think it's distinctly possible that Elon Musk potentially becomes the new owner of TikTok Shops. That's highly speculative. We don't know what's going to happen. I think the so what is that it may be valuable to look at TikTok Shop as a strategy if you're selling on e-commerce, because I think it's much less likely under a Trump presidency that TikTok gets shut down and that it's no longer a viable option. So that's it, guys. Take a deep breath. Whether you love the fact that Trump got elected or you're really upset, one thing that I've realized is that things outside of you have less control than you think. You still have independence as a human being. You've got your own thoughts, your own mind. You control your life. No one's coming to save you. You're in charge. So don't let things going on outside of you scare you too much. We've got a new reality with tariffs. Hopefully this video shed some light on what that might look like and what you can do about it and how you can take control and roll with the punches. Till next time, guys, cheers.